In the winter of 1945, as the Second World War dragged toward its brutal end, a young American medic carried a small notebook close to his chest. His name was Anthony Cesar Acevedo. He was only 20 years old, the son of Mexican immigrants, and a soldier who believed he had seen the worst of war. He was wrong. What he would witness, what he would write, would become one of the most important first-hand accounts of a forgotten chapter of World War II. Anthony joined the U.S. Army in 1944, trained as a medic, someone meant to save life, not take it. He was assigned to the 275th Infantry Regiment, part of the 75th Infantry Division. Young, hopeful, and idealistic, he imagined he would simply patch up wounded soldiers and return home. But on January 6, 1945, during a fierce German counterattack near Philippeville, France, Anthony and dozens of his fellow soldiers were surrounded and captured. The war changed for him that day. The Germans marched the prisoners through snow and frozen wind, without food, without proper clothing. Many collapsed along the way. Anthony, the medic, tried to help, wrapping wounds with scraps of cloth, sharing his own rations, offering hope where there was none. Eventually, the men arrived at a place Anthony would later describe as hell on earth, a forced labor concentration camp near Berga an der Elster, a subcamp of Buchenwald. This was not a typical POW camp. This was a Nazi slave labor camp, one where prisoners worked until they died. Anthony had become both a prisoner of war and a concentration camp inmate. In the camp, Anthony witnessed starvation, beatings, torture, and death. Every day, the prisoners dug tunnels deep into the mountains, forced to work for the German war machine. Yet even in those conditions, Anthony did what medics do. He tried to save lives, and quietly, secretly, he began to record everything in his notebook. Names of the dead, dates, injuries, brutality, starvation rations. A diary that could get him shot if discovered. But he kept writing. He wrote because the world needed to know. One day, he promised himself, someone would read his words. As American forces approached, the Nazis abandoned the camp. The prisoners, including Anthony, were forced onto a death march. Days of cold, days of exhaustion, men dropping in the snow and left behind. Anthony helped carry the weak, even though he was barely able to stand. When the guards threatened to shoot anyone who stopped walking, he whispered courage to the ones next to him. And then, April 23, 1945, freedom. American troops arrived. The march ended. Anthony had survived. After the war, Anthony returned home. The military, needing order and secrecy in a shattered post-war world, instructed the survivors not to speak about Berga, not to mention the torture, not to say they had been in a concentration camp. Years passed, decades. Anthony lived a quiet life as an engineer, but the diary, the little notebook, he kept it. He had promised himself that one day the truth would be known. In 2007, more than 60 years after his liberation, the U.S. Army finally recognized what Anthony and his fellow soldiers had endured. Anthony C. Acevedo became the first Mexican-American soldier officially registered as a Holocaust concentration camp survivor. His diary was released to the public. His testimony was recorded by the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, and the world finally heard the story he had carried alone for so many years. He said it simply, "I am here to tell the story of the soldiers who never came home.